This episode is brought to you by Pella Northland, Manomin Resawn Timbers, and Adaptive. All right, welcome to the Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams. I'm your host. Today I am joined with Daniel Felt from Kura Home Maintenance. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
All right. If you're from Minnesota, you've probably seen their green vans driving around. But why don't you give us a little brief background of who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive into it a little bit more deep.
Yeah, for sure. I grew up out in Litchfield, Minnesota on a farm, helped my parents build their dream home. And at the time, I thought it was absolutely horrible, but kind of launched me into where I'm at today. I went to school. I studied business marketing. After that, I worked for a agricultural company. They sell casual about 8 million chicken eggs a day and created a ton of
8 million chicken eggs.
Yeah, it's no joke. They're pretty big time. So
wow.
Yeah, I learned a ton about just SOPs and creating documentation to help people do things, especially when food is involved. You know, the quality has to be top notch. And so learned that. After that, my brother owns a home service business. He does window cleaning, holiday lights. He needed a general manager. We grew that from 8 crews to 16 in 2 years. And the idea to start Kura Home came up, and he didn't think it would be a good addition to his business, and I'm really stubborn, so when someone tells me something won't work, I said, you know what, I'm going to try it. So in 2016, I started Kura Home out of my garage in Plymouth, Minnesota.
Oh boy. How old were you at the time?
I was 27.
27.
Yeah.
All right. That's amazing. I love, it's often been told that you become an entrepreneur either because you're surrounded by family or because you aren't fit anywhere else. It sounds like it was both. It was like you had family and you were like, you told me no, fine, game on.
Yeah, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My mom and dad still raise golden retriever puppies, really nice dogs, and my brother's running that. And in some shape or form, almost all my siblings have either side gigs that are entrepreneurial or something. But yeah, at this point, I'd say I'm unemployable. I can never work for anyone else, and it's kind of like scary to think that. But I'm like, I don't think I would be happy, doing that. And it's like I'm sure I could be, but I think at my soul, I'm unemployable now.
It's funny. I started when I was 23, 24. It's kind of the same deal. Mm-hmm. But just this last year, every once in a while, you get a difficult client, or you just operationally you're stretched thin, you're overcommitted. Typical entrepreneur story, and you're like, yeah, I wonder. I never had any sort of really corporate experience or another job, frankly, because you're unemployable. And I thought, you know what, maybe I was bouncing off a few other people that were Target or wherever they were working, and I said, maybe I want to scratch at that. And like, dude, you wouldn't last 4 days.
Yeah.
And,
exactly.
So that itch should probably never get scratched. But every once in a while, it's kind of interesting to be like, what would happen if?
Yep, most definitely.
Anyway, so home maintenance. Why home maintenance? I mean, obviously, sounds like from the holiday light standpoint, I mean, you guys obviously increased the production there quite a bit. What did you gain from there, and why home maintenance? Why was that the place that you decided, needed to be filled?
Yeah, looking at the typical home service business, we're in usually higher end homes, especially with the Christmas light side. The average ticket at that time was around $800 or $900, per home. That's for your lights. So we're usually in higher end homes, and especially, same with the window cleaning. And in talking to customers, a lot of times we'd have people say things like, if only I could find someone to do this, that was a big problem. And as houses are becoming more and more complex over the years, and also people are growing up more so in daycares rather than in the home, watching their parents, change filters through this. People don't even know what they don't know. They don't know there's a air exchanger in your utility room. There's a filter here, a filter there. So, of the 34 things we do. But looking at that service industry.
Is it really 34, or is that just a number you pulled?
No, that's legit.
Okay,
yeah, it's 34 services. Yeah, yep. And looking at that, one thing that I saw in all these fields is, for me, I didn't want to go to college, but I felt kind of like I had to if I wanted to, make money, I guess. And looking at it in the home service industry, I wanted to come up with something where it was regular work. A guy could come, you didn't need a college education, and you could work normal, like 40, 45-hour weeks, like a normal, 9-to-5 job all year long. Yep. So that was a big thing. You don't have the huge influx of, coming from that Christmas light business. I mean, you can imagine the amount of work that goes into place. You got
60 days of just feast or famine.
Exactly. And it is crazy. So with this, what's really nice about today, we service about 800 routine maintenance clients in the Minneapolis metropolitan area, and we visit their home once every 3 months. And so it doesn't matter if you sign on any time of the year, we're going to come back in 3 months. And so you just have a really nice flowing schedule. My guys know they could look 3 months out and be like, hey, I know what I'm doing, in June, July, August, September. They know what they're doing in these times. So that was the big thing for me. Also the recurring revenue, which is, for anyone, especially small businesses, feels like you're always chasing that next. When's the phone going to ring? Are my Google ads working? Did this work? Is SEO working? Is my website up? All these things that are like kind of paranoid. But when you get into the recurring revenue, so looking at it, trying to like fast forward my mindset of a few years down the road, I'm like, if I had a couple hundred clients on this recurring thing, I feel like my life would be not stressful. I'd be able to spend time with, I didn't have a family when I started it, but now I do, but I'd be able to spend dinner with my families and things like that. And so that work-life balance was really important to me.
It's interesting because in some ways we have a different business operation in the fact that, I build maybe 4 new custom homes a year and a handful of remodels, and you're doing, you have 800 clients, I think you mentioned.
Correct.
Off air, and how, from a total visits in a year, so what is it, roughly 4 times 800? Is that roughly what you're getting to?
Yep, yeah, roughly 3,200. We also, but the interesting thing is that even though we had no intent of doing air duct cleaning when we first started, because one of those 34 items is dryer vent cleaning, your typical homeowner just assumes you also clean air ducts. And so at one point when I was basically scratching for any dollar, I had all these people asking, "Oh, can you also clean my air ducts?" And I was like, "No, we don't even do that." And so in 2017, I was referring more work than I was doing to some random guy. He never called and said like, "Hey, thanks for the referrals" or anything.
Right.
I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And we bought a machine that looked really great, had awesome reviews online, and we started cleaning air ducts. And I was doing it for a couple months. I'm like, this thing is just not doing the job that we want. And so we did a ton of research Christmas of 2017, that week when it's usually pretty slow in the home service industry. Most people don't want their they don't need softener salt that week, for example.
Right.
But I did a ton of research, and I ordered materials from about 11 different air duct cleaning vendors so I nitpicked the way it was done, and we put it all together. And so we clean air ducts different than anyone else in the entire nation. But
the entire nation?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no one else cleans. Like you can, because we order it from 11 different people, and most people just buy like a kit. And I think that if you have a really, really, really a guy who's been cleaning air ducts for a really long time, I think those work really great. But the home service industry, your average employee is with you for a year. And so I needed something that I could train someone in how to do it really fast, and they could do a really great job. And typically in the air duct cleaning industry, if you didn't know I clean air ducts and I said, "What do you think about air duct cleaners?" You're probably like, "I don't know, kind of sounds like a shady business," right? So with that, I needed something that provided proof. And so the way we clean it today, a consumer who knows absolutely nothing about air duct cleaning can come and you can watch over the shoulder of our guys from start to finish on that job, and you'll know for sure that we did a really great job cleaning air ducts, because you can literally see us doing everything that we're doing.
So it'd be like a video camera. Do you give them that? Do you email them after the tape of like other lint or cat hair, dog hair, whatever they're finding in there?
We do a lot with
Legos.
Social media. We provide a lot of before and after. Yeah, we find, I think, every type of animal that could fit in an air duct, and every type of toy or tool that you could imagine, and soda can, everything that you could imagine, from cash to guns to everything that you can imagine.
Cash to guns. Okay,
Yeah.
I was going to save this question for later, but we're in it now, which I was going to ask you for some crazy cleaning stories. I think it's actually quite fascinating, and we'll come back to the technology and how we met, because we met about air ducts. But guns, you're finding guns, and like your vacuum is sucking up what, like a rifle, a handgun? Like what? How in the world is a gun getting into air duct?
Well, I think it's a matter, like, you wish you could go back, because like the current homeowner is like, I have no idea what that is, right? So in that scenario, we actually had to get we called the police to say, here's a gun, and the police were like, well, it's the homeowner owns a home, therefore they own everything within it. So now, like, you own the gun, you should register it, basically. But it was a handgun from the 1930s.
1930s?
Yeah,
that's kind of cool, actually.
So that was really fun. And cash, like, we'll find like $1 or $2, $3 coins all the time, but we found $5,000 in an air duct one time. It was the same thing. The homeowner's like, I had no idea. We just bought the house a couple months ago. Like, that's really typical time when people get their air ducts clean is when they're buying a new home, because you don't want to get all the stuff from the old people, their skin cells and all that fun.
It's funny because when we do remodels, part of our business is old homes, right? 1919, 1930, whatever the home is, and people are always like, let's say you're complaining about the cost, you're like, I open up this wall and find an original Batman or original Superman or something like that was really cool. And we actually did remodel a house that it had been known that the person who had owned the house prior was a member of the Hells Angels and one of the higher ups. And so the homeowner was kind of an adventurous, funny guy. And I remember him telling the architect and I, when we were doing our site walk, he's like, hey, just letting you guys all know that I will give a $1,000 cash reward to any of your demo guys or framers, not if, but when they find something in the walls.
Yes.
And he's like, I'd like to know, because I suspect there's something in these walls. And so Anyway, I don't think anything was found, but
Yeah.
so I guess it wasn't a deal. But
Right. Shoot.
no, it would have been
That's
cool. Yeah, wow. I think so. We met because as I built custom homes, one of the things that we do, we started. I don't even know when we did it. I mean, we used a company for a long time, and it was fine. But you guys had such a great reputation. You and I had met at this point. I don't even remember how many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And I was like, hey, as a small company, we're struggling with like a lot of building companies. Like, how do we do warranty? Do we partner? Do we do our own thing? And it just made a lot of sense for us to be a partner with you. But we started out with the air duct cleaning, and it's a very valuable service for us. I mean, obviously, we're building a house over a year. Of course, you've got your sheetrock dust and all the other stuff and nails, and we, of course, clean it up. But I suspect that actually new construction is probably less dirty ducts because it's still new, even though because it's only been there for a couple of months, than some of these homes that have probably never had it cleaned.
Yeah.
Walk us through a little bit. You had mentioned your technology is different than anyone else in the country, and then we'll dive into some of this other stuff about what air quality and things like that.
Yeah, so I always say, like, when people ask me, like, well, when do you get air ducts clean? And I always say it's something new, a new home, a new baby, a new furnace, or a new construction project, or it's been 3 to 4 years. When you're remodeling an old home from the 1920s and 30s, and you come in and do all this construction, to your point, Mark, you guys are in there for a year, and so with that, you can't, like, clog the air ducts so you don't get any dust in there. The air is going to be filtering through, especially you're going through the 4 seasons in Minnesota. You need the furnace running. You need that blower fan running to blow cool air in through the summer. So no matter what, it's basically you're going to get dust in the air ducts. If you clog them with a bed sheet or sweatshirt or something, that's even worse because the air ducts, the furnace is going to
burn out,
it's going to break
or ice
down.
up,
right? So you can't even do that. So I think the only thing that you could do if you were going to be like absolutely crazy is you could put like a cheap filter over the intake ducts. And if you really wanted to, but I don't think even that it was really going to completely take care of it for you because there's such a fine dust when you're doing remodels. So the perfect storm, when you're remodeling in a super old house, when we clean the air ducts, it's going to be really interesting because, like, for us, there's all these different colors of dust. Newer dust is usually like, you're getting sawdust from wood and from sheetrock typically. So it's a lighter color dust. But old dust, for some reason, is dark. So you get all these different types of things. As long as there's not a moisture issue, usually it's totally fine. When you get humidity involved, and if it's too humid in the home and then it starts to get sticky in the air ducts, that can be really, really messy.
So walk me through, again, these 11 things that you're getting from these different clients when you did kind of your experiment. I mean, I had heard a few things like, hey, you drive this little, I'm thinking of like a Rover, right? It's a little, a bot or like this little whip that's like whiplashing or vibrations or sonic or, even when we do aero sealing, which now we do in all our new homes. And for those that don't know what aero sealing is we essentially pressurize your HVAC system, the metal. It's cheaper and more effective. And I've heard that they can fill like a silver dollar size hole with this stuff. So it's really meant to, if there's any little micro holes, screw holes, pin holes, anything like that, it sends this chemical through and then adheres to any hole. Correct. And now your HVAC system is much more efficient, right? On new construction.
For sure.
So with that in mind, how are you cleaning stuff that is wet or stuff that has been caked on there for years? I assume it's a little bit, and maybe I'm wrong here, but is it a little bit like a car wash and you go the touchless car wash?
Yeah.
It doesn't touch your car, but it doesn't do that great of a job versus like the ones that obviously are.
Right.
Is that a good analogy or not?
Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. That's actually how I always explain to people price wise because you'll hear about like a $99 air duct cleaning, and I was like, well, would you get like a 99-cent car wash? Like you can get like a $6, an $8, or $10 car wash.
That's so
right?
awesome, and dollar car wash.
Yeah. So we try to be like the $10 car wash at the $8 price point. Come in and provide a really high quality, and so with that, by having all these different tools and all these different scenarios, most of the time you're not having like a sticky, nasty residue. That's probably like less than 1% of the time. But there is like a touchless version that you can have like a reverse blasting ball, and it looks like a ping pong ball, and there's really small little holes drilled in that. So that attached to an air compressor hose, and we have really nice high-end gas-powered air compressors. That will propel itself all the way into the air duct, and it's blasting back towards our dome that we have, and that's actually sealed on with foam and a HEPA vacuum. And what's really cool is Mythbusters actually did a thing on this way before we were even doing this, but we've had customers send us a video to be like, oh, how cool this is, because they pick up a car using the cheapest vacuum from Home Depot.
No way.
Yeah, so because it's sealed on
you're
there.
talking like a little car, not a car that you drive.
Legit like a sedan. They pick it up. Yeah, you'll have to.
Okay, now send me the video.
Yeah,
we'll put it on our YouTube channel because this does sound interesting.
Yeah, so they attach it, and then with the suction power of it, and so we bring that same suction power and we put that over the dome. So all the energy from the vacuum is focused on that one, and then you have that air compressor in, and so we can use that reverse blasting ball or reverse blasting whips. They're about a foot long, foot to 14 inches. They're blasting. Imagine like a really flexible octopus going through, and that's just getting all the debris off the air duct and then it's also blasting it backwards. So between those tools and then that dome sealed on there, all the energy is coming back. It's coming into our HEPA vacuum, and we're getting out of that living space for you.
That's amazing. And just for those listening, so when we hire you guys will show up, maybe a week or two before our clients will move in, or right before, let's say, right after maybe final wood floor or something like that. So we know all the sanding is done. Everything can be kind of cleaned.
Yep.
We time it with our final clean. Usually we'll have you come in right after our final cleans because they're going to put dust in the air as well. Why are you... So, well, I guess time. It takes what, 4 or 5 hours? Let's say a house of ours is like 4,000 to 6,000 square feet. What does something like that take to clean?
Yeah, 5-6 hours. Like the most typical home, like the average home in Minnesota is right around 2,000 square feet. We're scheduling that for like 3 to 3.5 hours. So that's our most typical. So most days we can do 1 to 3 houses. Pretty typical for us to do about 2 houses in a day.
And how many trucks will you have running just for air cleaning? Because I assume they're dedicated. You're not having your home maintenance. Like a quarterly service plan is not obviously that. That's got to be a specialized truck, I would assume.
It actually we have because of the size of our vans, we can have all of our equipment in one van. So our technicians who are doing the routine maintenance, they can also do air duct cleaning as well. So we have that set up. In the spring when we're busy, we'll be running 8 to 10 crews a day in Minneapolis.
Wow, that's a lot. How back to the other question, I guess, was you had mentioned earlier that maybe every 3 to 4 years, and I think it was funny because I talked to one of your techs at one point, and I was like, just the idea because I really like air quality, and it's something that we'll talk about. Well, we'll talk about it now. People talk so much about water quality, right? We have reverse osmosis, we have purified water, and in general, even our tap water outside of Flint, Michigan, United States in general, but Minnesota in particular has very good water, and but we put a lot of thought on it. Even when I'm designing a home, one of my questions that's on my question list when I talk to people is like, are you interested in reverse osmosis? Sometimes they know about it, sometimes they don't, those kinds of things. Why do you think that people don't talk about the quality of the air we breathe as much? Because I've got to believe that that's probably more of a problem than the water we drink, but yet more attention is focused on water.
Yeah, I think it comes back to, which is kind of one reason why I'd say a lot of people maybe do or don't use a certain service, because I think a lot of people just don't know what they don't know. Like we've received 5-star reviews from people that said for the first night that they lived in their home, they slept all the way through the night. Like they didn't even wake up. And these are people that are very sensitive. So you have all these different levels of sensitivity to air quality. Some people are really allergic. Like the second spring hits, they're having to pop
pollen,
all that. And they're sneezing and they're crying. And the next person's like, "What's wrong?" So you have all these different levels of sensitivity. But I think as a whole, as an average consumer, people are spending more time indoors. And I know Minnesota is a very active state, but people are spending more and more time indoors. And I think people just don't realize how important it is. We've showed up to people's homes just to clean the air ducts, and their furnace filter has been in place for 5 years.
Oh man!
And I'm like, how's your furnace still running? I mean, that's like kudos to that furnace.
Right.
Like you're the MVP here. But they don't even realize. So we clean the air ducts. We put in a new filter for them, and they're like, wow, yeah, this is a game changer. Like I can literally feel the difference. So you don't even know. It's kind of like if you never work out, and then all of a sudden you start working out, and like 2 weeks in, you're like, wow, I just feel so much better. I didn't even know how much better I feel
after that person was sore for the first 10 days.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's just a matter of what people aren't aware of what they. But fortunately, a lot of homes that are older, there's enough like airflow, like air seeps in and things like that. Because now, like with air exchangers and how tightly sealed homes are, they're so efficient that we literally have to have machines in the house, the air exchanger, HRV, ERV. You literally have to have a machine in the home to just bring fresh air in, and that'll get clogged. That's like one of the most neglected things. Like I've had someone say that if they were going to kill someone, they would hide it in an air exchanger because literally no one cleans them, which I'm like, that's crazy that's where your mindset goes on that,
right.
But kudos to you. And
he's also the one that found the gun in his HVAC, so we're going to send social services over there next.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been very interesting, but those, the things aren't working properly. Then people are wondering, like, why am I always sick? Why, my kids are always sick or all these things. And it's like, there's quite a few little things that if you were doing them on a routine basis, the air quality inside your home would be significantly better, and people just aren't aware of those items.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. We, a lot of times we'll do, it's kind of like a feature upgrade list. Not every person. We had someone that had I don't think it was a lung disease, but very prone, very susceptible, especially right before COVID, and then COVID hit. Basically his life depended on his, the conditions of his lung were very susceptible. And so we ended up doing ultraviolet light. And for those that don't know what that is, essentially it's a UV light that kills, I believe, like 99% of the bacteria, but it just kills it. So the dust would still be in the air, the bacteria, and then you could go to a HEPA filter. And a lot of times people will say, well, hey, HEPA's, is a very well-known name. I don't even know, actually, high efficiency, what is the PA?
Purification something.
Something.
Yeah.
All right, I don't feel bad anymore. And thanks for making me feel good, Daniel.
Yeah. All I know is what HEPA. If it's certified HEPA, it's qualified as like 99.999% purification.
Of filtration.
Yeah.
But the point is that you don't want just HEPA in my experience. You want a kind of a general filter as well, kind of like a layered approach, right, to catch the bigger debris. And sometimes I'll have clients say, "Oh, I want to do HEPA," but then it'll clog a lot more too. So you need to have a system in place that essentially it's a little bit like a strainer. Start with the bigger stuff, get to and then eventually at the end let the HEPA do its final work at the end. So anyway, some of these systems in tandem. So anyone out there building a home or remodeling, first of all, you want to clean your ducts on a regular basis, but after that, make sure you have the proper equipment in place or upgraded so that you're getting clean air. You had mentioned, going back to the earlier question of 3 to 4 times, and so your rep had mentioned, I was like, oh man, we should do it every single year as like a thank you gift to our clients or like a Christmas gift. And he's like, oh no, wait a minute, Daniel has lots of golden retrievers. I didn't know that your parents had a golden retriever factory.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Breeding program.
Breeding program. Factory is wrong. Sorry, that's the Dalmatians. Cruella de Vil is behind bars, and this is a very nice family friendly place to go. Oh, and just that you have a lot of dogs, but on your own personal residence, you only do it about 3 years. Why? I'm curious. Why is that? I mean, if you have dog hair, I'm just thinking of dog. I can literally see. If I can see the dog hair, I imagine it's in the air. Why only every couple of years versus, let's say, yearly?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I am changing my filters. Usually they say the plumber's pipes leak. One thing that I am really good at, sometimes our water softener gets low, but I am really great. I bring a big box of filters home, and I'm changing those every 2 to 3 months. So I'm doing that very frequently. Additionally, my wife, kudos to her, does a really great job of brushing our dogs.
I see.
They are in and out, but they kind of stay in just one spot. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm watching. We do have clients that use us on an annual basis for air duct cleaning, but they are typically like someone who we were recently talking about, more sensitive to the air quality.
Yes. Yep.
My family is not super sensitive to air quality. And so I'm just doing it based on, how does everything feel in my home? Does it feel cloggy? Does it feel smuggy? Is like my nightstand, is that getting dirty? Like if on an irregular basis, like if I wipe my finger on it, am I seeing that it's really, really dusty more frequently than it should? So those are some of the things that I'm looking at. At the end of the day, like I do respect my guys' time. Time is money, right? And so with that, doing it every year, it just seems like it's not going to be as beneficial. But that's because of our scenario where we're at. We also, like our dog, we're on a farm, on a little hobby farm out in Delano. And so with that, my dogs do get dirty. So they really kind of stay to one spot in our house. They're not like sleeping on our bed with us. They're not up in our room. So with that, we're not sensitive enough to need it on an annual basis. We have some people that are, they're clean freaks. Essentially, they just want to be perfect. And I've had my guys go there, and they're like, we don't really think you need this. They're so honest. You know? And it's like, hey, you guys, at a certain point, they really want it clean, just so that for their peace of mind to know that it's.
This episode is brought to you by Pella Northland. For 19.5 years, I've been building homes, and 95% of all of my homes have used Pella windows. I couldn't be happier to call them a partner in our builds and our remodels. Whether you're an architect, a designer, or a remodeler, I'd highly recommend Pella windows. They can fit old homes, new homes, reclaimed, commercial, and really everything in between. Pella is a company that we trust and that we recommend to our clients. Additionally, in management, Peter and Ed have just been absolute fantastic people to work with, as well as mentors to me personally. So when it comes time to look for a window, I'd highly recommend Pella windows. Find more at PellaNorthland.com. Also, if you're interested, you can hear episode 1 where I interview Peter and Ed together for a great listen on business and Pella windows.
Clean.
That's funny. I think you're describing my wife. So we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary, and at this point, she has trained me very well. We did a sleepover with my kids. I have a 7, 5, and a 3-year-old, and my cousin is like my brother. And last weekend, we went over to his place while the wives were working or gone. And so anyway, the next morning, we're making waffles for the kids, and we lived together in college for like 9 years, and so he knows me extremely well. And so anyway, the kids are doing that, and I'm like a Hoover vacuum cleaner, cleaning up after everyone, like wiping down the table. And he looked at me and he's like, dude, your wife has you extremely trained. You were not like this before. But I say that by saying is like, I've often laughed when the cleaners come to our house. I wonder if they like sit in the corner and like, check their phones because like there's nothing to do here because the house is so clean. But we have you guys come 4 times a year. When you and I first started working together, it's really important to me that, even the sponsors on this podcast, I want to have a relationship so that when I give a testimonial, it just means more when I can tell a story. And so before I recommended you to any of our clients, I said, well, you know what? I am going to use you on my own personal home. Now I have a 1919 home. It's radiant heat. We don't actually have any duct work. So there's nothing, I guess, to clean from that standpoint. But dryer vents are always something that needs to be done.
For
That
sure.
seems very neglected. Plus, it's a fire hazard.
Yep.
And then what people often don't know, which you do, and I'd like you to speak to it in a minute here, is the oil pans in your hood. So we do these beautiful homes with beautiful gas ranges, and you're cooking a lot, and you're using them hopefully, or they're just art, and then you don't need them cleaned.
Yeah.
But that you're getting a lot of oils in general in
Yeah.
that fan, and then I saw a picture of that, and I was like, wow. Now it's easy to clean once you know it, but I didn't, for a long time, I didn't even know those things existed. I just thought, hey, the hood vents and the vapors just go away,
Right.
but I didn't realize there was a collection. Can you speak a little bit to some of the collection points in a house that are easily overlooked?
Yeah, for sure. And that range hood, that oil pan that you're talking about is a big one. It's really easy. A lot of times you barely even see them, and especially now they're built so nice and elegantly now. But that's a big one. There's a ton of different models, and they can actually get pretty complex. Where we actually pull even like the fan out and clean that out because so much grease gets built up. And our ultimate goal, get it like we get it, like owning a house is expensive, and replacing things, especially now, it's just getting more and more expensive. So how can we, by following the manufacturer's recommendations, just make this last longer and more efficiently? So that's our goal with everything. The range hood is a big one. People have no idea that their dishwashers have a filter in them. And I'm like the nerd that I go to a big box store and I walk through and I open up like all 12 and I'm like, see, filter.
Oh,
and
funny.
I've actually made videos about it. So I'm like, you guys, every single one of these, like, you're like, oh, my house doesn't have a filter. If you've literally bought a dishwasher in the last like 6 years, I can basically guarantee that it has a filter because look, all these do.
What out of curiosity, before the filters, what happened to stuff?
Yeah,
it just sat in the bottom of the dishwasher, and
well,
people would have to like just scoop it out with a shovel, or what?
Yeah, or things were just built better. So now that filter is
Built better.
Yeah, in my opinion, I don't think appliances are improving. I think they look nicer and they make nicer sounds maybe, and they're getting a little bit smarter. Like, for example, our washer and dryer, it knows like if you put like delicates in the washer, and then it knows to dry as delicate as well. So like they're getting smarter, but I don't think they're becoming more durable by any means. Like we have clients that have like a refrigerator and it's from like 1960. They're like, oh yeah, good old faithful. And then the next person's like, oh, my refrigerator went on for 3 years. So
right, because it's got too much tech in it. It's
Yeah.
too smart.
Right. So basically, it was built better. They didn't need that filter in place to help the pump, basically
see.
drain that, things like
Yeah.
that. So the dishwasher, the washing machine is a big one. If you have a top loader, usually on the bottom left or right hand corner of your washing machine, there's something that looks like the size of a postage card, and that it needs to be opened up. And there's a filter in there. It's a pretty dirty, smelly job. Probably one of the smelliest things we do. So those are three things that
That's
people
on the top loader or the front loaders, or both?
on top loader.
Top loader.
Yep, exactly.
Why is that? I think this is, from an aesthetic standpoint and from design, building new homes. I mean, I do obviously want to recommend to our clients something that's going to last. But that being said, we're also balancing form and function like anybody else. And I mean, the front loaders are very in vogue. They're very nice looking, and you can obviously put cabinets on top. I mean, so there's a useful side of it. However, I've heard from clients after clients, and my own house included, where basically that ring smells because you've got a horizontal situation and the drain is in the bottom versus the old vertical tube where obviously water's draining out the bottom. What is your opinion on that in general? Just like, as you mentioned before about odors and smells with that filter.
Yeah. So we actually, based on demand, we added like 4 additional services at the beginning of 2022. And
so from 34 to 38 or from 30 to 34?
From 30 to 34, yeah. Yep. And so we're at 34 right now, and who knows where we'll go. But we try to keep our services where it's like a yes or no. Did you do it or not? Right.
see.
And so like changing a furnace filter, yes or no, did you do it? Some things that we had gotten rid of in the very beginning was like caulking, for example, because that can take like 8 hours, and you may think that it needs to be done, and I may say no, it doesn't, vice versa. And then they're like, well, we were gonna see 4 clients today, and because now you want caulking done, we have to like reschedule everything. So logistically, we got rid of some of those things. But with the washing machine, we actually now added where we will clean that seal. We will not only like do the elbow grease part of like we're getting in there, we're wiping all that down for you. Then additionally, we do a clean cycle and we put a solution in there to help clean that. And that has been like, people have legitimately called us like, we want your quarterly services just so you'll come and do that.
I mean, it smells. It smells bad.
Yep.
I'll go on, we do a 1-year walkthrough on all our new homes. But just in general, I mean, at my own personal home, we've got a front loader, and, my wife has a very specific way of leaving it open, letting it air dry, making sure you're wiping it down after every use. It's a lot more maintenance than people think.
Yes, most definitely. And I think that's the overall consensus of what's happening today is you almost need like a host manager for these homes, because there's everything needs like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, just change this filter every 3 months. It's like, okay, that and everything else in your house, and like, plus you have a kid's schedule, and Saturday morning comes around and it's like, Do you want to be doing all these routine maintenance tasks, or do you want to be at your kid's soccer field or playing t-ball with your kid in the backyard?
And what happens is 5 years later, you come in and they haven't changed their filter one time.
Yeah.
We have something that we joke good-heartedly about it with our clients, but they pay us good money to design and build them a beautiful home.
Yep.
But they're buying a home. They don't know as much sometimes about owning a home. Now, this is a total stereotype, but in my experience, this has been true. The older generation, no problem. They kill it. The younger generation,
right?
I don't know the exact age, but let's call it anywhere under 45, anywhere under 40. I mean, you can't clean your house with a click of a button.
Yeah,
There's no app. Actually, there's a great app at Kura Home.
Use
that. We'll talk about the development of your app in a minute. That app is next level. Someone still has to do the work.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think there's this misconception when you build a new home, like, hey, I just built a $4 million home, $2 million home. I don't care, $100,000 home. It doesn't matter. There's this perceived thing like it's new. It shouldn't break. It shouldn't need anything. But I think it's on me actually to explain to the client from the get-go, maybe not the first meeting.
Yeah.
I don't want to defer to them from building a new home. But at some point to educate them and say, to your point, this is a if you have a big enough estate, you have a caretaker, right?
Correct.
And so people on that level of home, these big estates obviously are going to have a full-time care manager, and they need it.
Yep.
But frankly, even the smaller ones now, with all the technology that you're talking about, you need at least regular check-ins.
Yes.
Or you at least need a blueprint or checklist to go through and then actually stay on it, schedule it.
Yeah. I think the best way, and going back to the car analogies, which most people seem to understand, is if you bought a brand new car and it told you in 3 months to get an oil change, would you say no because it's a brand new car?
Right.
You'd still 3 months in get that oil change because you know that you want that car to last.
Wait, do you have to put gas in a new car?
Yeah. Well, that depends too.
Electric, good point.
But and so for a lot of people, you're right. There's a very, very common, in my opinion, misconception that you don't need to maintain a brand new home, and it's like, oh, we'll sign on like a year in. And it's like, I hate to tell you, but at that point, you've done all this extra wear and tear that wasn't even necessary, and you're depreciating your appliances significantly faster than you would have if you would have just started from the very beginning, start maintaining them. And realistically, even if you were moving in day one, there's still a ton of things that we could come in and do, because even just like think about the furnace filter, for example. If it's a brand new, that furnace has been in place for quite a while. If you're moving in day one, I'm sure that furnace has been there for minimum a month to 3 to 6 months, depending on the season and the length of time it took.
I mean, one of the things that you and I have just recently done this last year, and we're going to do it going forward, at a certain price point of a home, and, I guess I could also just talk to the client about it ahead of time if it's a different price point or a remodel, but, we include with the purchase of our home, some extended service, which is essentially you guys. And we found, I mean, obviously time will tell, but I suspect, right, we get you guys in the front end right away to make sure that you're basically keeping, oil in the gas, oil in the oil tank, and gas in the gas. That's the best analogy, really, is just to keep things operating smoothly. And I think a lot of times you have some decision fatigue after a new home is created. You just spent a year, 2 years, 3 years building a home, and you're just like, I just want to enjoy my home. Well, if you want to enjoy your home and keep it operating at a high level, you need to actually start with service.
Correct.
And I mean, sure, you can miss the first quarter after you've moved in. We'll let you go by that one. But after that, it's really important that it's also setting up a regular cadence so they understand that it's, because I suspect that as this goes on between us, that, people then will start picking up years 3, 4, and beyond, just because it's like, this is great. And, it's kind of like ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I mean, I definitely think, that people often ask, what is the lifespan of your furnace? It depends. What is your lifespan of all these different things? And it frankly depends.
Yeah, one thing that I'm seeing is that people are really specializing in certain things, and these people that are very, very intelligent and really great at certain things that are maybe living in a $1 to $5 million house, they can't even hang a photo. And that's nothing against them, because you're so great at what you do, and it's like your brain works this way. Mine, I couldn't engineer what you're engineering or run the company you're doing, whatever it is, what your occupation is. But it's no fault of them. They're so crazy smart in one area that it's like there's not room in their brain because they're so good at this. There's not room to do these other things.
I'm smiling because it's not because I'm smart, but the biggest fight I've ever had in my life with my wife was over hanging a picture.
Yeah,
it's not because I wasn't capable. It's because she kept changing her mind. And so actually, whenever we move into a home or change stuff, I'll have my trimmer come over, because I'm like, it's for the sake of my marriage. It's better if Todd, my trimmer, hangs my pictures in my house, because it's, a
lot of wisdom right there. A lot of wisdom.
We're on year 10 here. Man, wow, this is turning into a congratulations for a decade of marriage podcast. I love on your website, it said farm boy work ethic to the city. I love that approach. What do people say? I mean, how often do you actually get to meet people? This is actually, in the 5 years, this is the first time you and I've met actually face to face. You had to start a podcast in order to meet Daniel, so that was worth it. It's worth it, guys. But how often are you in the field, either doing sales calls, or what does your day to day look like now? You've built this incredible company. What does your day to day look like?
Yeah, I'm not doing routine maintenance or air cleaning. I would say I'm running a business.
Yep.
And what's really interesting is as you network with other people, like another service, I feel like, whoa, you and I could like switch places because I'm not so much involved in like the now. We know how to clean air duct, we know how to do routine maintenance, we know how to do the sales. So for me, I'm working on the big picture thing. I get a report every Monday morning from my executive assistant of here's what happened last week, here's what's going. If there's something alarming there, whether it be numbers or a callback or lost a client, whatever if there's something alarming, I jump in. But I'm extremely, extremely fortunate to have a team of people that really care about the way that we service our clients, when, how, all the quality. We obsess about our reviews. If we get a bad review, it's like all hands on deck. Like, what happened? Why did this happen? We actually still to this day, we have a 15-minute technician meeting every single morning in case there was an issue the day beforehand.
Wow.
That they can address. So if we got like call back Monday afternoon, that same issue is not going to happen on Tuesday because we fixed it that fast in the morning, and my operations manager runs that. So I'm extremely fortunate. I feel extremely blessed to be to the point where I'm not so much working on in the business. I'm working on growing that. And my largest thing that I'm really focusing on is expanding Kura Home services across the nation. And we've tried doing that a few different ways, but what's working now and sticking is with the franchise or licensing model. Mm-hmm. And so we've just sold our first license, and so a gentleman came in from Seattle.
I saw that on your Instagram the other day.
Yeah, so we're really excited about that. We trained him in, and he's like, this is an awesome. He's like, you're putting me like 12 to 18 months ahead of where I would have been if I would have tried this, but what's really tricky about the routine maintenance is no one Googles it. People don't hear about it. So we've found very unique ways to get that out to people. So you think, like, why doesn't every city or metropolitan have their own version of Kura Home? And I talked to a gentleman on Monday morning in California, and he's like, I've been going at this for 6 months, and I have 3 customers. How do you have 800? And that's the secret sauce that we're sharing with people to get them from hey, I've got my 3 customers, which is not a sustainable model, to 800, and you've got.
And maybe I'm naive in this because I think there's 2 to 4 million. What have we got? 3-4 million people in the metropolitan area. I don't know how many homes that would be, but let's just call it 2 million.
Yeah.
800 seems extremely light. It seems like you could walk down the street and pick up 100 people, and maybe this is my sales optimistic side of it, because it's like everybody needs it, but not everybody wants it. So is it about the message that you have to convey out there? Like, what is the hurdle? Why? I mean, everyone needs it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that, like a typical situation, right, is the wife calls. She's so frustrated that her husband isn't getting this done. He's busy, right? He's working.
This is so awesome.
And we're doing the estimate, right?
Valentine's Day special.
Yeah, exactly. And we're doing the estimate, and the husband is standing in the corner with his arms crossed, listening over to all the things that we could do. And he's like, and we do a la carte options, right? So we say, hey, of the 34 items, like your house has 28 of them, and which ones would you like us to do? And he's in the background chirping, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And the smart wife says, but you don't, right? And so then we actually we train our sales guys to say that, hey, Jim, homeowner Jim, we know that you can do this, and we know that you're probably great at it. At the end of the day, what's your time worth? And do you really want your wife, as sweet as she is, to be bothering you every 3 months to be doing this when we could just come in? I don't know what your time is worth. Let's say it's anywhere from $100 to $500 an hour. I don't know, but we can do this for a couple $100 a quarter, and that includes everything, and then it's just done. And usually, and that's like, and I know that we're stepping on your toes by coming into your domain and your house that you own. You're the hot shot. But
funny.
We have to allow them a reason to say, you know what, I don't need to do this. So we work with a lot of women, a lot of women that their husband's busy, and a lot of dual income people that they're both too busy. They're like, they're so sick of things breaking down their house, and it's like life's go, and they just call us. So I think that there's a lot of people that think I can just do it myself. There's a lot of people that just goes back to they just don't know what they don't know.
This episode is brought to you by Manomin Resawn Timbers. Based out of Hugo, Minnesota, this talented family-owned business goes all around the country, taking down barns, reclaimed beams, and then repurposing them and putting that American spirit back into your homes, your commercial projects, your bars, your pubs. They've been in coffee shops. They've been all the way to New York and Ralph Lauren, to the homes in Minnesota that we build. I couldn't be more proud to call them a partner and a proud supporter of our show as well as our building. So whether you're an architect, a designer, or a builder, I highly recommend Manomin Resawn Timbers for any of your reclaimed wood uses. You can find out more about them at mrtimbers.com, as well as episode number 10, where we interview them on our podcast. This episode is brought to you by Adaptive. Adaptive is an AI software that helps you solve all your bill pay in the construction world. In construction, bill pay is quite messy. You get every single one of your subcontractors submitting different types of bills, different formats. This AI technology is able to take all that information, help you auto code it so that the days of endless hours of coding it into your software and into QuickBooks is now done much, much faster. Additionally, they're working on software that will help you with the draw process. So whether you're submitting it to a title company for payment or a client, with a click of a button, you can now initiate draws as well as tracking your lien waivers. It's been an absolute game changer for us. So if you're looking to speed up and save time, I'd highly recommend Adaptive. You can find out more about them at adaptive.build. Additionally, you can listen to Matt Calvano and I talk about their company in episode 15 on the Curious Builder podcast.
And they just have no idea that's
so this is interesting. I'd be curious to know on your demographics. I had mentioned earlier that the people that I find that are probably better at taking care of a new home, just based on my experience, like they change their own filters, they do, are people probably 50 and older because they've been doing it for a long time. They probably would be your most difficult clients to get because they're also they can do it. Where I'm just guessing, I want you to confirm this. Where if someone was, let's say, 40 and younger, they don't not only try, they don't even know what it is, but they probably are less. They probably have less red flags for you to even come in. Is that true?
Yeah, for sure. You've hit it exactly. Of our 800 clients, I think we have like 5 or 6. We don't ask people their age, but just in like talking to my sales guys, I think we have 5 or 6 that are over the age of 70. So we barely touch that demographic because they have time, they know how to do it, and they're like, and I think it's a sense of pride for them. Like, I'm gonna do it. And I've actually, back in the day, I gave an estimate to the sweetest old lady. She was like 90 years old, and she's like, "No, I can do the softener salt by myself." I'm like, "There's no way you can carry the softener salt bag. That's half your body weight." She's like, "No, I'll show you."
No way.
Yeah. So I'm like, I gotta, So I'm like, I can carry it. She's like, "No." If we go to the back of her truck, she already had it all set up, the back of her little sedan. She takes an ice cream scoop and scoops a little bit of salt out. And she's like, "No, I'll show you." It took us like 8 minutes to get to the basement, and she dumps in that one thing. She's like, "Yeah, this doesn't take any time at all." And I was like, at that point, I just understand that there's some people that, and that client actually, she wasn't even going to pay for it. Her son was like, "Please go take care of this for me. I'm always doing stuff in my mom's house. Just don't even tell her the price."
Her name was Dolores, and she had 2 cats.
Yeah, exactly. and I was like, man, bless her heart that like.
That's amazing.
But I like one thing that someone told me when I went to school is like, just do something when you get, join chess club if you have to. Just join anything. And I think for a lot of people when you retire, you got to be doing something. And I think they enjoy nitpicking. Yeah. But to answer my really long-winded question, your answer, we are primarily in people's homes that are between the ages of 30 and 55. If you narrow it down even more, I'd say we're definitely in that like 38 to 55 range all day long of people. They've got a couple kids. There's a golden retriever running around the backyard, pitch from a parent.
I'm still blown away at this 90-year-old lady with a ice cream bucket grabbing salt. It's actually pretty impressive.
Yes.
I mean, you could say a lot. You could almost write a book on that particular subject right there, like perseverance. I mean, that time, right? I mean, I think it was Tom Brokaw. I didn't read the book, but it was, The Greatest Generation, right? Yep. That generation of, World War I, II, and all that. I mean, just this focused mindset of getting it done. That's
I mean, I left that and I was like, that's who I want to be when I'm 90. Like, I'm so stubborn. I'm like, no. Listen here, young man.
No, this is why you started a business.
Yeah, exactly.
You actually started way younger.
Yeah.
When your brother told you couldn't start a business, you're like, I'm going to take this bucket and I'm going to grab some salt and this is what I'm going to do.
I'm doing it. Exactly.
I'm going to use my hands to clean your ducks. Probably not a great idea. Wow, that's really interesting. So you've got your 34 services. Mm-hmm. Obviously quarterly. Walk me through a little bit of, you come out, you do a sales call with somebody. You have their list of services, and I assume it probably increases. They start just probably a barrier entry, whatever you can get in to start it, and then I assume that model continues to grow year in and year out, or people usually, like, once they're in, they're like, I'm going to do most of the services and just let you do them.
Yeah, for the most part, people select almost all the items right up front, and then here every once in a while they'll like add 1 or 2 here and there, depending on where they're at. Or sometimes they think like my husband's gonna do this, or maybe they were buying softener salt from the local sports team, baseball or wrestling, and then their kids are out of that stage, and now they're like, actually, can you guys just take care of that too? So a lot of times they're adding all the services, and then they're not changing it. And the way that our pricing structure works is for the quarterly services, like to grease and oil your garage door, for example, it's a very simple task. No one does it. So I think it's like $8 for us to do that, right? Very simple. Some things are a little more expensive, like dryer vent cleaning. If you just call us today, it'd be like $139 clean your dryer vent. But if you're on the quarterly plan, it's $80 a year. We're gonna do that once a year or as needed. So we just charge $20 a quarter to come and do that. And so once a year, it's done. So you're not paying like $800 one visit and like $200 the difference. It's like, $300 to $400 and it's the same price every single quarter.
I suspect you have a lot of people, excuse me, like myself, in the fact that I, as a business owner, hire you and introduce you to many of my clients. But I also am I wanted to try you guys out, so I use you on my own personal home. And one thing that I was really impressed with right away was your app. Walk us through a little bit of how you use technology. I mean, obviously the services, we just talked about how you can't solve it all with the button. However, your app makes it very organized for your service techs. I was impressed that, they show up very professional, very clean, they're on the ball.
Thank you.
Walk us through we'll get into training in a minute, but the app that you developed, how long did that take? How important is that to your overall system of scheduling? And just, it seems like you guys are in and you're out and it's like you're done.
Yeah. The biggest thing for us that was really important, that kind of one reason why I hinted a little bit of my background of creating these systems and processes of that's great. I could be doing this myself and I could probably do 50 to 100 houses, quarterly or whatever, and still run a business. But that wasn't the goal. That's, the company's not about me. It's about a team of people. And so creating systems and processes. And so what would happen is we'd be doing estimate. And we'd walk through your house and I'd be like, okay, you got smoke alarms, batteries like 90 cents. And, I'm trying to figure out what's your price going to be. But trying to figure this out. I'm like, there's got to be a way to simplify the pricing system. And so that's, that we created. So it's a la carte. So I don't care what car you have in your garage. I don't care what it is. If we're going to do the softener salt at your house, it's going to be this price. And that's going to be the same price for all your neighbors, the person on the other side of town. The price is a price. That's what it is for us. And then it just changes based on the items that you select. So that allows us a very systemized approach. And then that gets transferred to our client form. And the client form was created out of necessity as well, because when I went from 1 to 10 clients, in the very beginning, you go back to client number 1 and you're like, well, did I do this last quarter? And sometimes I look back at like the transition. We're probably on version like 20 of this client form app that we're discussing. And today it's so nice because it looks like a really nice report card that you get in elementary school. On the left-hand side, you can select from 1 to 34 of those services. Then there's 4 columns for each quarter. And on the right-hand side, it tells you exactly how frequently we're going to do it. And then on pages 2 through 6, we actually take a photo of everything that we did for you. And all that, the goal is just who's our most particular client? And I'm not going to say her name, but I know who she is. And these are some of the things that she wants. She's like, well, how do I know you did it today? Well, here's a photo. And so with that, we now have a timestamp on that. And so it's just the goal of find your most particular client, meet their standards. And it's for the other 799 clients, they're so easy to service.
That is a great sales to anyone out there that just heard that. Listen to that again. Basically take your most difficult client, please them, and you will blow the rest of their clients out of water. That's what I get out of that.
Most definitely.
Wow. That is impressive. How the app itself? I mean, you went to a software developer. Walk us through how someone creates an app like that.
Mark, you're really talking this app up, and I hate to tell you how simplistic it is. But
hey, this thing is cool, people.
Yeah, and we use it internally just to create that up. It was actually very simple. What it represents on the back end when you dive deep into the software. And I'm not a super tech guy, but it represents a shopping cart that you would use. So as we're selecting those items, we can scroll based on quantity. And it just really systemizes things. And actually, it's really nice because when we're doing the estimate, I'm not just guessing your house is going to be $480. And then they're like, well, I was hoping to spend $425. And now we're hemming hawing. Okay, the price is $480. And they're saying my budget was $425. We say, what's 1 or 2 items that weren't super important?
Just like Amazon. Take it off if you don't want it.
Deselect. It's the exact same thing. Deselect it. You don't need it.
I think you guys have embodied. Even your website is very clean. If you guys haven't seen it, it's curahome.com.
Correct.
And it's a very elegant website. Those that aren't familiar with the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
I've heard it once. I love it. It can't be improved upon. But I even wrote in my notes before the minute, like, you have a KISS website. It's very clean. Your app, obviously, I keep talking about this amazing app. Steve Jobs really wanted to buy it before he started Apple, I'm sure. And it's just, I think it's really clean. It's mainly because I think I'm attracted to it because it's so visually clean. I think that's what attracts me to that as an owner. I understand it very cleanly. And the fact that you can just toggle on it and it comes up with your price, it also makes your text jobs much easier.
Yes.
Because you've figured that out. They're there to do the work. Pricing is a whole nother ball of wax.
Sure. Yeah.
One thing I've noticed is, and I think this is really encouraging in our industry, actually recently I was just down at the Capitol Hill for Minnesota Housing First, which is our local building association, just trying to get more awareness for why we need affordable housing. And you're thinking, well, why are we talking about this right now? This episode is not brought to you by Minnesota Minnesota Housing First, but if they want to contribute, they certainly can. My point is that we talk about declining industries. Building in general, we have a major labor shortage. It's already here, and for the next probably 2 decades until we solve it, maybe indefinitely, it's going to be a major problem for sure in Minnesota, but I think across the United States. And you often hear, I wish there was more young people in this industry. I wish there was. I have to tell you, at least from the people that I've met, I've probably met about 10, 15 different of your people. I don't know their exact ages. I don't ask them, but I would suspect 90% of them are under the age of 35. Am I close?
Yeah, most definitely.
And so I think it's very encouraging. You have young, very knowledgeable, extremely personable. I am blown away at their. I mean, do they all work at hotels and like get concierge service? Because they are very professional, very impressive. And you're going to, as someone who owns a business that is in the home business, you know how important it is when you go into someone's home, like treat it with respect, and like you're describing this attitude towards the mister with his arms crossed, and like how do you diffuse that? I mean, these people have to have a pretty high social IQ in terms of interacting with people, yet still be able to do the work. I guess from twofold questions, if people forgot why I'm asking this question. One is it's a statement, is I'm impressed with how young the workers are, and I think it's a positive sign for our industry, so kudos to you for attracting young talent. And then 2, how do you hire, and what are you looking for when you hire? Because that can't be by accident.
Correct. Yeah, it's definitely not. We're very, very intentional on finding people. Like we actually prefer that you have no experience in like air duct cleaning or routine maintenance. There's no one else doing it, so that's fine. We're there. But our goal is to find people that do have a little bit of customer service experience. Otherwise, we can train you on customer service. And it's in our training documentation, it tells you how to drive into the driveway. It tells you how to knock on the door. These things that you're like, what does that have to do?
So it's like a sales script almost like.
Yeah, exactly. And every single one of my guys know, if they were sitting in this room, they would know that when you knock on that door, you take 3 to 4 steps back and you stand there with a smile on your face and you wait for that door to open. They all know that, because it's in our training documentation, and we go through our training documents every 90 days in that 15-minute meeting in the mornings.
That's cool.
So everything is very, very intentional, and that's one reason why I can be sitting here right now recording this podcast, and I'm not out in the field or doing something, because those guys, they know what they're supposed to do.
Is that why when you first sat down, you rolled your chair back 3 feet because you wanted to get a little space? Yeah. You're so ingrained in your SOPs.
I'm trying to make you feel comfortable, Mark. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so it is the little things. I think it's being really, really intentional and taking a mindset of I'm trying to build something that we can replicate. I know that when I bring a guy on, I know that, hey, after 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to be at this level in our training process, and you're going to be doing a great job. But yeah, and I think it's also a cultural thing. We're really, really intentional. Like when guys are being trained in and you see, hey, here's 15, 16 other guys doing it this way, you're not going to be the odd man out. You want to fit in. You want to get a good review. You want your name highlighted in that.
So it becomes
review.
A positive reinforcement competition, if you will. If
100%.
You want to use, yeah.
Yeah, and we could dive really deep how we play that game with bonuses. This is one that I'm proud of that we're doing this year. My guys love it. One thing that we were having an issue with was guys, they get comfortable, they get relaxed, right? And all of a sudden they're at 7:25 and 7:30. So pretty soon guys are showing up late, or maybe you had a big day and you don't want to come in. So I said, I tell you guys what, I know the cost that it costs us when we reschedule a job. It's really, if you were going to do $1,000 today and then you reschedule it to Friday, we actually lost out on $2,000 because we would have done $1,000 today and on Friday.
Wow.
So we're losing $2,000. So I said, if you show up on time every time this week, I'll give you $10, and next week $20, and next week $30.
Oh, so it rides.
It rides. And so at
It's
the end
like
of the
the
year,
skins game in golf.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the year, Christmas bonus, you can get $520 if you've showed up on time every time. You can request time off, unlimited.
And that's one of the metrics. I assume there might be others.
Yep. On time every time, you're good to go. If you show up late, it starts over. So you don't get your bonus that week. And so if you're on week 10,
So you accumulate your bonus weekly. So at least it's not like if you missed it and things happen, right?
Correct.
Something happened. What happens if there's like a flat tire or something like that? It's out.
That's
life.
There's no excuse.
This is
no excuse.
Great.
If everyone shows up on time,
collectively,
it doubles. You'll
for
double
that
your
week.
Bonus. Yep. You'll double your bonus that week.
That is genius.
But if someone no calls, no shows, no one gets their bonus that week.
Oh wow, this is incredible! This is the first high five on the Curious Builder podcast.
So that took me from like, oh, we had to reschedule this client, we had to reschedule this job, to like, because I was talking to my managers, and then I'm like, you guys, what's your largest struggle? They're like, honestly, we just need really, really consistency. And they're like, it's fine, but it's just when you have 15, 16 people, it's like, it'd be like, this guy was late like once this month, or like, it's like really small. You put big numbers in, and then you look at it, you're like, yeah, like one person's late at least once a week. And these guys now, my one guy who was like the largest offender, bless his heart, he started calling everyone at 6 a.m, making sure they're awake, so they're on time. So these guys just started like
self-regulating.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard it seems like as a company scales, one of the most important things recently talking to some other builders was kind of like a management team within the company.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was another builder on that had maybe 17, 20 employees, and
Yeah.
he had a leadership team of like 4 people, and they would have their own meetings, their own deal. To your point, essentially when it's employee led or inner team led, it seems to have much more traction than if the owners, interesting. Wow. How big is your overall team?
Yeah, I believe right now we're at 19 employees.
19.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we had grown quite a bit. We expanded into a few other states doing owner-owned, corporate-owned locations. And the other day we couldn't keep our quality up, and to me that's super important. This is I'm trying to build a scalable operation, something that one day maybe my kids buy me out or I sell. I don't know what I'm super happy where I'm at right now. I'm not. Kura Home's not for sale, but So
or is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Highest bidders submit your resumes.
Yeah, send me a text. But I ultimately, when we were in those other locations, it was so hard to control the quality. And one thing that's really important to me is I don't miss dinner with my family. I've got a 2.5-year-old and a 6-month-old at home, and they know that I'm home for dinner. And my 2.5-year-old knows that. Like I'm there, and that's really important to me. And so it's it's like, could you make a couple extra grand this year if you did this or do that? And it's like
not worth it.
It's not worth it. Like I saw his first steps. I loved that I was home for that, and that's really important.
I think that we've talked about that a lot on this podcast, but it seems like in general, entrepreneurial podcasts, we talk about time. And there was another builder that was a good mentor to me and just kind of gave us some outlines. And I think especially when you love your job and it's not hard to work sometimes. I mean, sometimes obviously it is, but it's not always a dream.
Yeah, right.
But it's difficult. But that being said, you still love working on and in the business. And but why are you doing it?
Correct.
And I think also your values for your company and for your people, I think that it's not why we do it, but I think it ends up becoming an extremely powerful statement to your clients, because the things that they would want to value, they should see that you're valuing it, and therefore they value you because you value it. And it's not meant to be a salesy thing; it's a real thing, right? You're not selling more homes because you're like, I get to watch my kids' first steps. It's like, no, you're watching your first kid's step, and if you lose a sale, that's okay.
Yeah,
and they respect you for that. I think also understanding that you're a business, and it's not like you're not coming at 9 o'clock at night. I always use the analogy when people say they want to meet nights and weekends, and if someone's flying out of town, there's an extremely unusual circumstances, that's fine. But I have young kids too, and so I try to create the boundaries for those very reasons. If you want to go see the dentist, you're not going to see the dentist at 9:30 at night after dinner. Like that doesn't happen. I don't understand why. Seems like in housing in particular, things around homes and even service and maintenance, I'm sure you get calls all the time. Well, I need you here right now. Well, we'd love to schedule you. We'll do the best that we can, but this is
Yep.
We can't get there right this second.
Most definitely. I think that's getting better. It seems like more people hire more services done, and people are really specializing on certain things. And so it seems like a lot of people have used at least a few services. Like they have a lawn guy, or they've got a few things going on at their
so they've been
houses.
Trained a little bit more and more.
Yep, a little bit. And there's the oddballs out there that are like, are you gonna notify me or whatever? Like, I promise you're gonna get an email a week before, one day before, and we'll send you a text on
and
our
a photo when we're done. Thank you, Miss Client,
that
you helped us create this.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got all that stuff in place, but every once in a while you have to educate. But for the most part, and a lot of times when we're coming in, especially for routine maintenance clients, I'd say we're typically the 4th or 5th vendor. They've got like a cleaning service that's coming weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. They've got their windows clean. They probably have a lawn guy and a snow guy.
I think I guess we're all. I shouldn't say all. I feel like everyone is in the service industry on some level. And the fact that like I have a client, I must service them. I feel like I could learn. I feel like you have such a high touch business, and mine is as well. But my transaction, it's a relationship, and I love that on your website you even put that like you're not trying to do one customer and then find the next customer. You want to. The first thing that you talked about was I want a repeatable business for the sake of my family, for the sake of my employees, but also for the sake of the client. Like you get to know them. Like you can take care of something better if you've been there multiple times. And I feel like building a custom home is a very high touch, very emotional journey. The home is super emotional, but understanding and respecting the fact that this is your home. We want to do a great job, and but service. I feel like me specifically, I could learn a lot from somebody like yourself that I feel like has much more experience in the sense that you're touching 3,200 clients a year. Or touch points, I should say. Based on that 800 service count, and I feel like you guys have your SOP dialed in, super dialed. I mean, it's pretty evident just the things that you're sharing. So you might have to do a side consulting gig for businesses on how to truly treat their employees or their clients.
Yeah, I will say, and I appreciate that. I think one thing that really changed the way I had a goal. One goal last year, I was like, none of these like lose 5 pounds BS. I'm just gonna like consume 52 books, and that really I feel like mentally brought me to a different, even just the way I think about life brought me to a different, because you're getting these people that are like area experts and they're documenting everything. They're giving you all their secrets, and you can listen to an audiobook. I got to the point, I cheated. I got 1.1, 1.2. I got to the point where at 1.7 times speed, I was fully comprehending everything. And I like people get my vehicle and they're like, dude, why are you listening to this?
That's so funny you say that.
Yeah, cheat time, Windshield University. It completely like changed everything. It really helped me.
University.
Yeah, it was great.
You should grab that domain name. That's actually a pretty good one. It's funny. One of my questions later, I guess we can talk about it now, was favorite books, and I'm super into self education as well, and so it's the reason I started the podcast. One of the main reasons. The podcast, the audiobooks. I usually will mix in just a book to relax to, or not relax. What sci-fi, fantasy, whatever your history. And a lot of people are into crime these days. Yeah. True drama or true crime? Yeah, true crime. Yeah. So 52. Walk me through what were some of the highlights of that experience.
Yeah, I from that I got into short-term rentals. We purchased 3 short-term rentals last year using other people's monies. And I know it sounds like you're at some kind of huge convention, like do it now and you can do it 0 money down. But like reading these books, like we legit did it. We and that was great. We're 50% owners on these houses, and my wife manages them, and it's going really, really smoothly there. Reading fun books like 10X by Grant Cardone makes you just want to kick a door down. I mean, it's like I'm gonna go out and do this, and I think.
What was the name of that book?
10X by Grant Cardone. That's a really good one that a lot of anyone at any stage in your life can read. I'm into endurance sports, and so I really loved any books with David Goggins. And Living with Seal is the book that Jesse Itzler wrote about, because he actually felt like kind of made David
That was one
Goggins.
where he lived for like 60 days with him?
Yeah.
They didn't say him by name. I just heard about this the other day when I was working out, oddly enough.
Yeah, and because at the time, David Goggins didn't want to be known, and so he calls him Seal in the book, and that one is really good. I've listened to it actually a few times. A lot of these books I've listened to a few times. Other than that, there's a lot of common ones, and I think that really kind of gets into the entrepreneurship, like E-Myth Revisited, things like that, that are like, or the Pumpkin Plan, Profit First, things that are like giving you
Michael McAllowitz. That guy's really sharp.
He knows his stuff.
Yeah, he does.
So some of those are fun, but like I said, I listened to Short-Term Rental, Long-Term Wealth, book by Avery Carl. It's short. I think I had to listen to that. She didn't have an audiobook, but it was a short book. And it basically tells you exactly how to run a short-term rental. I mean, we're in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and we've got 3 houses right now booked out in Cape Coral, Florida, and we haven't had to go there once because of just the way the system's been processed. And we self-manage. So because of the tax benefits of her being able to be a real estate professional, if you spend 750 hours or more, then you can appreciate that. So gets into probably not this podcast, but it gets into the details.
We're definitely going to have like 3 or 4 more podcasts, one per book. So there'll be 52 podcasts in this series.
Exactly.
That's interesting. Because one of my questions was, what are you reading right now? Like, what did you listen to while you're driving here?
Yeah, I'm actually listening to like a non-business book. It's a 42-hour book. It's called About Face, and it's a guy telling his basically his autobiography of going through the military.
Okay.
And he was, he's a vet, and it's a long book, and it talks a lot of I'm pulling like leadership things out of this, and it's amazing because I started a Facebook community for home service professionals. It's really small. I just started, so there's like 52 people in it. But I asked that same question. What do you guys recommend? And someone's like, read this about Facebook. And I'm like, I looked at it like, there's no way I'm listening to.
But at 1.7, you can really crush that thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I'm flying through it, but so I'm listening to About Face right now. It's really what I want to get back into business books, because just today I feel like I'm really motivated. I'm feeling really good. I'm getting all this stuff done, but I want to keep getting good stuff.
So I have a question for you. So I have a very, not that set, but I mean, essentially Monday through Wednesday, I hit all my podcasts. I think I have 3 or 4 that I follow pretty regularly. And then I'll hit up basically, if I do distance running in the summer, so I'll do trail running. And so I actually kind of missed that. I've torn my meniscus, so I haven't been doing that trail running. But I'll crush audiobooks, when you're running for a couple hours, right? And but I guess where I was going with this is, then I get into the, the books later. I try not to have multiple books going, because I've tried to. My question to you, as someone that is doing 52 books in a year as a business owner, sometimes I won't call it a guilt complex, but as I'm educating and as I'm listening to this stuff, you read a business like the Pumpkin Plan or Traction, which is I'm sort of reading right now at home, and it's like, in fact, it was so detailed I had to buy the book, because I'm like, I can't listen to this book and actually process it. I'm gonna have to like go through it slower and really understand it and highlight it and all that jazz. But how have you come to grips with all the information that you're getting versus actually acting on it? Or are you okay with like, I'm going to continually, to me, the only way I can analogize this is like a shower. Like I take a shower every day to be clean. I mean, I'm just using this as an example, but for those listening, I do take a shower every day. And random fact.
Things to know.
It's funny. I really thought Mark smelled when we saw him last time. Yeah. Sometimes multiple showers a day if you're working out. So anyway, the point of it is, by doing that, you've set a practice in place. So therefore you are clean. Or just like, you mentioned working out, you're not going to get fast running one time. But if you run 3-4 times a week, over the long term you will. But it's not one specific workout that made you faster. Right. How do you? This is a pretty long-winded question. How do you process this idea of you're downloading 52 books into your brain? Mm-hmm. How do you know which ideas to actually take? Or are you okay with like, what, when inspiration hits me, I write it down? Walk us through that, because I'm really interested to know the answer to that, because I struggle with like, do I stop? I could read the same book like probably 10 times in a row and get something new every time.
Yep. For sure. So a lot of those books that are really great, I'm going to re-listen to. And some of them are How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think I've listened to every year for like 13 years. I mean, that thing's going on. Like, I think it's going to start skipping on Audible there because it's been listened to so many times. But you'll
get like a badge, right? The Iron Man badge that they give you where you listen to it multiple times.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just build my like mental portfolio of like good to know things. So I'll jot things down. I've got notes, so I'll jot or I'll highlight something in that, just copy it, and I'll send myself an email of like a reminder to re-listen to that. You're listening to a book Traction right now, which has so much to take in, right? You've got to slow that thing down. That might be like a .08 book, right? Like you gotta really slow this thing down.
I have to read that analog. I can't even listen to that. It's too much.
Yeah, exactly. So that has so many things put into it and you're actually implementing things. Same with Profit First, right? They want you to go and open all these bank accounts, do all this stuff. So
did you do that out of curiosity?
I did. We do follow Profit First.
Do you
still.
really?
Yeah, like 4 years later. Yeah. Yep.
Interesting.
That got me from we're not going to make payroll. I mean, I remember at times I knew that the funds transferred at like 5 a.m. and my mental subconscious as a stressful entrepreneur would wake up and so the one account would go negative, but I knew if I transferred it by 8 a.m. I wouldn't get the $30 fee from the bank, and so I'd have to move like Thursday morning I'd have to move it to make payroll on Friday, and that was like
stressful.
Months. Yeah, and so we switched to Profit First, and it was like within like a month I was like, oh my gosh, I'm telling my money where to go, and it was just so much better. And reading that book at the time, I was like, well, there's no extra money. Why does it matter putting it into a couple different accounts? But to this day, my bookkeeper, they don't love it because it's a little difficult.
It is a lot of
but they do. So I think my answer to it is I'm building it so that when a problem comes up in life, I have all this information that I can reference back to and be like, I remember reading this. And there's a really good quote in one of the books, and I forget what it is, but it essentially states that there's no such thing as a problem that's too big. You're just not big enough yet to solve that problem. That's why it's so much like really stressing you out. And I remember things that were stressing me out as a entrepreneur of 1 year that like I look back today, I'm like, that happens like 16 times a day now, and I don't even deal with that. Like I remember like emails coming in, all stuff, and like I got to respond to this email right away. We get back to emails within 5 minutes at Kura Home because that's just our goal. And I don't remember last time I answered a customer email. That's just not my job anymore. So you create the systems and processes in place, and you become a bigger person, and solving problems becomes easier and easier, and you can take on larger problems, and your business grows as a side effect of you becoming a more equipped person to handle the different challenges.
Do you find that your employees and the people that are your team, that they also are self-educating like this? I mean, do you guys do team books, or like, hey, once a quarter, like how do you, not enforce is a strong word, but how do you recommend that, or how do you process that as a team? Because I just started, and we'll see how it goes. We're using Atomic Habits, which I've read a couple times. Great book. I feel like the other thing is when you start talking to people about business books and they're into it, it's like every single book, like you're like, oh yeah, I remember that one. Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, Atomic Habits is really great.
And I remember I read it 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm on chapter 8 right now at 1.6 speed. I can't handle 1.7. By the way, I can't listen to my own podcast on double speed because I speak really fast. But there are some podcasts where I have to listen at 2x because they're just very drawled out and slow. And I had a designer step in my car. We did a road trip down to Rochester, and she's like, "Oh my word, you're freaking me. You're tweaking me out. You can't handle this. You got to build up to it." So I'm not quite to Daniel's level yet on the 1.7. Sorry, the question was, how do you implement it with your team so that they enjoy it, so that they want to do it?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a few different approaches. Some of my guys, they come up to you. We have a chit chat or conversation sidebar, and it's barely ever about work. And it's like, how's life going? And a lot of times I'll ask like, would you be open to a book recommendation? Because like if I tell you, well, Mark, what you really need to do is you need to go to the bank and you need to open up 6 accounts. You're like, okay, why? But if I say you should read the book Profit First, it'll help systemize and with your cash flow. you're way more likely to implement that in your life. And so for me, with certain people, I'm just recommending a book every couple months, and I say, and I'm not gonna hold your hand on this. I'm not gonna babysit. Let me know when you're done.
And we'll chat about it.
Yep. With management, things like that, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm like this perfect business owner. I'd say about once or twice a year, I read a really good book, and I send it to all of them. I say, I found a really good book. I really love this. If you'd like, I will buy it for you to read it. I think it'll be really great for what we're currently doing. So that's worked, but we're not like perfect. We don't have like I've seen some business owners that have like a chart of like, if you read a book this week, put a star, and the number of stars, we'll put $10 for
it's like going back when you have little kids, like if you do your math homework, if you did that's funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Some things never change. Turns out your first grade teacher taught you everything you need to know about running a business.
You'd be surprised. There's a lot of little things that put in place. It's amazing how it works, that you can really go back to some of those things, like publicly praising people and, privately correcting things like that. It's like, man, you actually did learn a lot just watching. I mean, I have 5 siblings, and so
where are you at in the birth order?
I'm number 4 of 6,
okay.
And we're kind of split in half, and there's a pretty big gap between my brother and I. We're 4.5 years apart. Everyone else is like 2, and so I kind of have some older, like the oldest sibling tendencies, but I also have to like fit in and like follow the herd because we all pile into our minivan. It's like we're late, and so I have all these like weird tendencies. But it's amazing, like you look at all this stuff, and it's like, wow, it kind of makes sense. Like running a business is not that different than running a classroom or a large family.
Do you do when you hire? And I feel like we're honestly going to have to do like 5 podcasts here. There's so much here to unpack. But how? I mean, when you hire people, are you doing the personality test, like see how they fit in, and walk us through? Just because I think you have such a great repertoire to pick from, but how are you hiring your people? I know you've interviewed them, you want to train them, but how are you basing this off of just your gut feeling, or do you have a series of questions, or multiple people interviewing these people, or even like a personality test? Because what you're talking about a little bit right now is how the birth order does affect how you view certain things, which is super critical in a business.
Right. Yeah, it kind of depends. At times we've gone super deep into it. In 2020, when it was really easy to hire people, we were doing group interviews, and we'd have everyone do a disc assessment, and we'd actually go across the room and everyone answer the same question. And then we'd start like left to right. Yep. And then we'd do right to left. It'd be like, tell me what you like to do for fun on the weekend. And it was amazing. Like, you'd ask like 6 or 7 questions. It would take like 15, 20 minutes. And by the end of it, you could tell like that person right there is awesome. Like, and it was
group interview. I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, it makes you so nervous, like when you're first gonna run this thing, because you're like, okay, I'm inviting like 15 people to show up at 10 a.m. and then like 10 of the 15 would show up, and you're like, hey,
it's like a dating reality TV show. You could have monetized that thing for sure. That sounds really interesting.
That worked really. Then now hiring is a little bit different. So now we definitely have a set of questions, and it's very, very intentional, and it'll be things like, at one point during the conversation, I'll ask you, Mark, if you were going to describe integrity, how would you, like, if you said your friend had integrity, what would you say about them? And they'll list off traits, like they show up when they say they're going to show up, they do what they say they're going to do, blah, blah, blah. And then we'll ask a few different questions, and then I'll say, I have a question. If your friend that you described earlier was here, would they say you're a person of integrity? And sometimes people will be like, you know what, actually, no, I'm always late. This is like the first time I've been on time ever. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, maybe you're not the best fit. But then, like, some people like.
But they're also really honest. You're like, okay, that's part of integrity.
That's another thing during interviews. People are almost too honest. Like, and that might be like a tip. Like, people like maybe like not. Don't be so crazy honest. I mean, it's crazy. People answer any question during an interview, and luckily I feel very professional about it. But we have a very, very a set of questions that make it get to the point where, are you going to be someone that fits in with Kura Home, and are you going to be someone that could we send you to our most particular client? We use that a lot. Could we send you there in 2 or 3 weeks, or would you only be able to do this? And we've had guys that my ops like, you know what, I think this guy would be really great at like doing this, but not this. And it's like, do we want to like nickel and dime this thing put together, or are we just looking for that great employee? Because I'm willing to run one less crew and have like 8 really awesome crews right now, rather than having like 8 and then like crew 9's like we'll send it to like the bad clients. Like, no, we're gonna send everyone. You could go to our absolute best client, you go to our most leisure client, doesn't matter, where you can go to your house, and we're going to send a really great person.
Wow. We are running out of time, and I actually wanted to talk to you about franchising, so we'll have to save that for the next time.
Sounds good.
Where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Daniel Felt. If you want to get in touch with me personally, our website is Kura Home. It's Kura, kurahome.com. We're local. You'll see our vans driving up and down all the highways in Minnesota here. And yeah, I always love connecting with anyone locally.
Yeah, check them out on Instagram as well. They do some great videos and reels that are always really interesting. If you want to see some of the stuff that they're cleaning out of their ducts, that's pretty great. You can find them at Kura, and everything will be in the show notes. So thanks for coming on, Daniel.
Yeah,
really appreciate it. And if you like what you heard, please share with someone that needs some home maintenance. Please rate and review. That's how we get more listeners to the Curious Builder podcast. And thanks for tuning in.